The most important thing, like, I'm not sure, I'll just wait for you to ask a question, but like, it's, I want them wherever they're at. Like, I have no inclination of where they're at right now. Like, I've exhausted like every friend that I know of, and every friend that I have has called friends that Shanann has that maybe I didn't know about, and it's just like it's vanished. Like, she's not, like, when I got home yesterday, it was like a ghost town. Like, she wasn't here, kids weren't here. I have no idea like where they went.
At 2:17 in the morning, a device registered movement. Not a phone, not a camera, not a witness, a Fitbit attached to the wrist of Shanann Watts, a 34-year-old woman, 15 weeks pregnant, in her own home in Frederick, Colorado. The device logged 72 steps. Then it went still. It would never register movement again. Her husband, Christopher Lee Watts, told investigators that when he left for work the following morning, Shanann was alive, that they had argued, that she had gathered the children and he had left. That is what he said. The data said something different. Case number 2018-CR-1377, Weld County, Colorado. Victim, Shanann Catherine Watts. Date of birth, January 10th, 1984. Age at death, 34 years old. 15 weeks pregnant with a boy she had already named Nico Lee Watts. Additional victims, Bella Marie Watts. Age 4. Celeste Catherine Watts. Age 3. Perpetrator, Christopher Lee Watts. Husband, father. On August 13th, 2018, at approximately 1:48 in the afternoon, a welfare check was requested at 2825 Saratoga Trail in Frederick, Colorado. The call came not from a neighbor, not from law enforcement, but from Nicole Atkinson, Shanann's close friend and colleague with the nutritional supplement company Thrive. Atkinson had driven Shanann home from a business trip in Arizona just hours earlier. Shanann had been dropped at her front door at approximately 1:48 in the morning. She had sent Atkinson a text shortly after confirming she was home. After that, nothing. Shanann missed a prenatal appointment. She did not respond to calls. She did not answer the door when Atkinson returned to check on her. Atkinson called the police. Officers arrived at the residence. Chris Watts was home. He let them in. He said he had not seen Shanann since he left for work at 5:15 that morning. He said she was gone when he got home. He said he didn't know where she was. He appeared calm. Exhibit preliminary observation. Responding officers noted no signs of physical disturbance within the residence. Christopher Watts, cooperative and composed throughout initial contact. Within hours, a neighbor's surveillance camera footage had been reviewed. Shanann's white Lexus was still parked in the garage. The children's car seats were still in the vehicle. No bags, no luggage, no indication the family had gone anywhere voluntarily. By the following morning, the investigation was no longer a welfare check. It was a homicide investigation. On August 13th, 2018, Christopher Watts agreed to speak with detectives from the Frederick Police Department and the Weld County Sheriff's Office. He was not yet under arrest. He spoke voluntarily. This is what he said. He and Shanann had an argument, a serious one. He told investigators he had told her he wanted to separate, that the marriage was not working. He said she had spoken with him in the bedroom, that they had argued, and that he had left for work at approximately 5:15 in the morning on August 13th. He said that when he left, Shanann was alive, that the children were in the house, that he did not know where they went after he drove away. He gave a further interview to a local news station that same day, August 13th, standing in front of his home, appealing for information about his missing family, describing them as his blessing. Exhibit: Watts' statement, August 13th, 2018. Watts told investigators Shanann was alive when he departed for work. He could not account for her whereabouts afterward. He denied any knowledge of what happened to her or the children. Investigators noted the statement. They also noted what the statement required to be true. It required Shanann to have been alive, awake, and mobile after Christopher Watts departed the property. It required her to have taken 2 children, aged 3 and 4, and left the house without her car, without her phone showing further activity, without any trace of her movement after approximately 5:15 in the morning. It required all of this to have happened without a single piece of electronic, physical, or surveillance evidence capturing any of it. Investigators began running the data. Exhibit A. Shanann Watts wore a Fitbit fitness tracker. The device was synced to her account and logged movement, steps, heart rate, and sleep data in real time. Investigators subpoenaed the Fitbit records from Shanann's account. What they retrieved was a precise chronological record of the last hours of Shanann Watts's life, logged in intervals, time-stamped, and stored on a remote server that Christopher Watts had no access to and no ability to alter. Exhibit: Fitbit data. Shanann Watts account. Device activity log for the night of August 12th into August 13th, 2018. The data showed the following. At approximately 1:48 in the morning, Shanann arrived home. This aligns precisely with the account given by Nicole Atkinson and confirmed by Atkinson's own timeline. The Fitbit registered movement consistent with Shanann entering the house, moving through it, going upstairs. Between approximately 2 o'clock and 2:15 in the morning, the device logged a period of reduced movement, consistent with the user getting into bed. At approximately 2:17 in the morning, the Fitbit logged 72 steps. This is the data point that investigators returned to again and again. 72 steps, a small number, the kind of movement consistent with getting up briefly, crossing a room, moving through a hallway. An ordinary moment. At approximately 2:18 in the morning, the heart rate data flatlined. Not flatlined as in ceased completely, but flatlined as in the device stopped registering a live heart rate reading altogether, which, with a worn Fitbit, means one of 2 things. The device was removed from the wrist, or the heart of the person wearing it stopped beating. Exhibit: Fitbit. Heart rate. Log 2:18 a.m., August 13th, 2018. Device ceased logging active heart rate data. Final step count recorded, 72. No further movement activity registered on the account after this timestamp. Chris Watts said Shanann was alive when he left for work at 5:15 in the morning. The Fitbit data showed that Shanann's last recorded physical activity occurred at 2:17 to 2:18 in the morning. That is a gap of nearly 3 hours. 3 hours in which, according to Chris Watts, Shanann was alive and present in that house. 3 hours in which her Fitbit registered nothing. A sleeping person still generates heart rate data. A person lying still generates heart rate data. A dead person does not. The Fitbit was not the only piece of data running that night. Investigators did not rely on the Fitbit alone. In a case built on digital forensics, the standard is corroboration. Every exhibit must speak to every other exhibit. Shanann's cell phone. Phone records showed that after Shanann sent Nicole Atkinson a text message at approximately 1:48 in the morning, confirming she had arrived home, there was no outgoing communication from her device, no calls placed, no texts sent, no app activity initiated. A phone sitting idle on a nightstand generates some passive background data, app pings, system checks, but no active user-generated communication after 1:48 a.m. Exhibit: Cell phone records. Shanann Watts. Final outgoing communication, logged at approximately 1:48 a.m., August 13th, 2018. No further user-initiated activity recorded. The neighbor's doorbell camera. A neighbor at 2825 Saratoga Trail had a Ring doorbell camera. The footage was recovered and reviewed. It captured Christopher Watts's work truck leaving the residence at approximately 5:17 in the morning. It captured no other movement from the residence in the hours prior. No one leaving through the front door. No indication of a woman with 2 children departing on foot or by any other means. Exhibit: surveillance footage. Ring doorbell camera. Watts truck departs 5:17 a.m. No pedestrian exit from the residence recorded between 2 a.m. and 5:17 a.m. Shanann's vehicle remained in the garage throughout. The physical search of the residence. When officers entered 2825 Saratoga Trail on August 13th, the children's medication was still in the house. Their bedding was present. There were no signs that clothing had been packed. Shanann's purse was inside the home. Her keys were inside the home. There is no version of a voluntary departure that does not take the children's medication. There is no version in which a mother leaves without her purse and keys. Exhibit: physical search, 2825 Saratoga Trail. Children's medication, personal effects, and vehicle keys. Present in the residence. No luggage removed. No indication of planned departure. And then there was the oil site. Christopher Watts worked for Anadarko Petroleum. On the morning of August 13th, after leaving his home, he drove to a company oil site called Survey 319, a remote location approximately 40 miles from his home, accessible by dirt road, with limited traffic and no public presence. GPS data from his work truck confirmed this route. On August 15th, 2018, investigators searched CERV 319. They found the bodies of Bella Watts and Celeste Watts submerged in oil tanks on the property. Their father had placed them inside. Shanann Watts was found in a shallow grave nearby, buried in the ground adjacent to the oil tank battery. She had been manually strangled. Exhibit: physical evidence. Survey 319. Oil site. Remains of Bella Watts, Celeste Watts, and Shanann Watts recovered August 15th, 2018. Cause of death for Shanann: manual strangulation. Pathology consistent with death occurring in the early morning hours of August 13th, 2018. The pathology was consistent with the Fitbit. On August 15th, 2018, Christopher Watts was taken in for a polygraph examination. He failed it. Detectives conducted a second interview. They told him what the evidence showed. They told him about the Fitbit, about the phone records, about the surveillance footage, about what had been found at CERVI 319. He broke. His initial confession was not the full truth. He initially claimed that he had discovered Shanann strangling one of the children and that he had killed her in a rage in response. That version was immediately contradicted by the forensic pathology on the children, in subsequent statements, including a detailed prison interview conducted in 2019 by investigator Tammy Lee and agent Graham Coda. Christopher Watts admitted to killing Shanann in their bedroom in the early morning hours of August 13th. He admitted to killing his daughters at the oil site. Exhibit: confession. Christopher Watts, August 15th, 2018. Watts admitted to the killing of Shanann Watts and the deaths of Bella and Celeste Watts. Time of Shanann's death consistent with 2:17 to 2:18 a.m. window identified in Fitbit data. On November 6th, 2018, Christopher Lee Watts pleaded guilty to 5 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of unlawful termination of a pregnancy, and 3 counts of tampering with a deceased human body. He was sentenced to 5 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. He will die in prison. The Fitbit did not solve this case on its own, No single exhibit ever does. What it did was this. It established a time stamp. A hard, immovable coordinate on the timeline of that night. A point at which the data stopped, and from which investigators could work both backward and forward to reconstruct what actually happened. When Chris Watts said Shanann was alive at 5:15 in the morning, he was asserting a fact. And facts, in a digital world, are testable. The Fitbit had logged 72 steps. Then nothing. Heart rate data? Absent. Movement? None. For nearly 3 hours before he says he drove away. A dead woman does not generate step data. A dead woman does not send texts. A dead woman does not walk to her car, load her children, and disappear into a Colorado morning. The device on her wrist told the truth that her husband would not. Shanann Watts had a name for her unborn son. She had a future she was building. She was documented in her social media, in her business work with Thrive, in the thousands of photos and videos she posted, as a woman who was fully, visibly alive. She documented everything. In the end, the documentation documented her death, too. The evidence has been presented. The record is closed.